Welcome to Pittsburgh Postgame. The Indy 11 playing with 10 still get the win and all 3 points against the Riverhounds for the second time this season. I'm Matt Gajtka along with John Krysinsky of Pittsburgh Soccer Now. He'll be joining me in just a moment here. 1-0 Indy over Pittsburgh. John, just like last time at Highmark Stadium about 3.5 weeks ago, it's Tyler Pasher getting the decisive goal. This time it comes early, and this time, though, the Hounds have a golden opportunity to punch back. They have the whole game to punch back, but especially in the second half, playing up a man after Ioze was sent off, the veteran Indy defender, for handling the ball on the goal line. But then Robbie Mertz can't convert the PK, and really after that, not much of consequence. So a pretty disappointing offensive attacking effort for the Hounds in falling to 4-3 here. What do you think might have held them back as far as creative ideas in that second half?
Yeah, I think they were the Hounds. First of all, when you get that at the beginning of the second half, that seems like such a huge momentum, game-changing type situation. But then you can't convert the PK, and that's that had to deflate them a little bit. But they kept pressing. Possession obviously changed completely in the second half, but it just seemed like they weren't getting enough effective crosses in. I think they finished the match with like 5 crosses. They were trying to work. It seemed like they were. Indy did a great job of bottling things up. I know the game day announcers they talked a lot about that, and that certainly led to some of it. They bottled everything up in the middle. So, but the Hounds didn't. They just didn't put enough pressure on goal. I think they ended up the match with 4 or 5 shots, 4 or 5 crosses. It's, at the end of the day, it's just not enough. And, Bob Lilly's press conferences, if you pay attention to him, the Zoom calls that he does on Tuesday or Wednesday before each weekend match, very prophetic. I mean, he was worried about getting stretched. He was worried about the bigger field, and that came back to bite them with the Pasher goal. And then in the second half, they just weren't effective in the final third. To me, that was the bottom line.
It's like you have to analyze this one as 2 separate games, because the first game, I'm not sure the Hounds were at their best, but I know as well they had some opportunities to counterattack. They had some touches inside the 18 that just went awry. Skylar Thomas was denied on a second ball after a Forbes cross in. It was a restart situation for Canardo. So there were opportunities there in that first half. Sparse, but there were a couple, and I was curious to see how that second half might pan out. Of course, the course of the match was completely thrown off by the red card. It should have been to the Hounds' advantage, but in a lot of ways, John, the game changes so much when you're down a man, say, from the Indy perspective, and trying to protect the lead. I should mention as well that John is currently at Seven Springs. That's why he's outdoors. I'm envious. I was just up that way.
Last minute weekend getaway. We just decided to come up. So, but I didn't miss. We had enough to do during the day, so it's nice to relax and watch the Hounds tonight.
Well, as a coach, John, you talked about Indy and their approach to it. What is a team that's down a man trying to do there in order to force the issue for the team that's attacking and trailing by a goal?
Yeah, I mean, the extra pass, Bob talks about that a lot. And, tonight it was like there were times where they were patient, and you do need to make that extra pass. You do want to stretch that defense because you know that they're going to be compact. And it just felt like they were sending too many vertical long balls. That's probably not the best thing to do against an experienced team like Indy. A team with 3 or 4 veteran defenders and holding midfielders, and just they knew Indy was ready. Like I said, they were compact, and the Hounds, I think, could have been a little bit more patient playing it side to side. I think it seemed like when the ball got to the central midfield, maybe that next pass, and they were trying to send those balls up to Dos Santos. I know that's what the Hounds like to do. They like to play the ball through Dos Santos and then redistribute. But it didn't feel like, I don't know. They just weren't getting that extra. They needed to make that extra pass, to stretch that defense. And Bob talked about stretching that back 3. You got Hackshaw back there. You got You got Omet. You got some experienced players back on that back line, and I give India a ton of credit. I mean, that's what 100 and 80 minutes now against the Hounds plus, and not give up a single goal. I mean, this is going to be the toughest team. I mean, it was a playoff feel to the match, and like you said, it was kind of went both ways. But it just felt like Indy's going to be a tough nut to crack in the playoffs. I think they're built. They can defend well. They have that obviously dangerous capability of scoring with Pasher. I think it was interesting too to see how the Hounds defended Pasher today too. I think they obviously didn't have Danny Rivera in the lineup to start, and there was a different. They went with the same lineup they played last week against the Red Bulls, but but again, when you're trying to get that goal and you're pressing forward, and one of the things the Hounds have had a lot of trouble with in recent years has been that when the other teams allow them to play, they tend to struggle a little bit, and that's something that Bob's going to have to go back to the drawing board on that. And the other thing was, I just felt like Indy, at home, I think they just felt comfortable. I don't know. It was just one of those nights for the Hounds.
Yeah, I would say so. They just didn't appear to be completely sharp. There were quite a few heavy touches early on. There were some panicked moments as well when Pasher got behind them on a couple of occasions. One, Skylar Thomas recovered to defend quite well. I'm not even sure that was his side of the pitch, but he raced over to help back up Ray Lee. Then the other led to the goal where Tomas Gomez just had to sprint off his line and try to do something. I feel like half the goals, at least, that Pasher scores, John, that I see on the highlights are just like that one, where it's a well-timed through ball and he's off to the races in the racing city, I suppose, of Indy. That's very appropriate. They're wearing the checkered flag-inspired jerseys tonight, and it looked like the pole position driver in Tyler Pasher getting it done there. I want to give credit to Andrew Carleton too, because it was his through ball, the former Atlanta United prospect, his through ball that sprung Pasher. Those two are pretty formidable at the top of that formation. And when I saw that it was not going to be Nick Moon, I thought maybe the Hounds got a bit of a break because Ilya Illich is more of a hold-up type of forward, but Carleton definitely made up for that and more by being that connection between the midfield and Pasher, who's the primary target there.
And Carleton's an interesting player because it's the first time he came through a couple of years ago with Atlanta United too, and he looked young. He looked like he was overmatched at times, but you could see the talent there. Had been in the United States men's national team system. He's kind of dropped off a little bit, but maybe this is what he needs to be in a place like Indy where he's around a lot of good veteran players, not the pressure at the MLS level, but to kind of build his game. And who knows that better than Tyler Pasher, right? Tyler Pasher came to Pittsburgh, and it took him a while to get, build his career to the point where he is now as just a top level USL type player. So that's interesting to watch. And, I think the Hounds midfield's really struggled. And, again, give Carleton credit. I thought there were times where Canardo Forbes, usually really an MVP candidate as far as I'm concerned this year. He had his good moments on the ball. And he had some moments where there were giveaways, and at midfield, the Hounds, I just felt like they were rushed. Kind of going back to that other question, the previous question, they just felt rushed in trying to build things up. And I think a little bit more patience. I know they were down a goal, they were up a man, but when you're down a goal, up a man, you do need a little bit of patience. You want, in Canardo, you want the ball at his feet as much as possible in that situation. He's going to make the right decisions, the right balls. And it seemed like he was trying to make the perfect pass a few different times as he got the ball near the 18 or the attacking third.
Riverhounds now 4-3, and John, the Hartford Athletic is now back on top solo in Group F as they took care of business. They beat the Red Bulls 2-1 tonight. So Hartford's got 15 points. The Hounds have 12. It's still a 6-point gap between Pittsburgh and the rest of the division. So it's not like their playoff prospects got any worse tonight as we creep toward the midway point of the season, which will arrive at the end of Wednesday's match at Loudoun United. But it didn't get any better as far as trying to find that home playoff game to start. I'm not assuming they're going to make the postseason, and I don't think any of us should assume that as of yet. But at the same time, it's natural to look ahead. And actually, it looks like we might be looking at another rematch against Indy out at Lucas Oil Stadium. So What do you think the Hounds can learn from this one to try to take forward if there is a third meeting of the season between these two?
Yeah, I mean, obviously today is a learning. It's a learning opportunity for this club. I mean, they have to build on what happened today, and they have to figure out ways that they can win against a top level team like Indy. And I think they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. They have to look at the tape. I have no doubt. I have a lot of confidence that Bob Lilly will have the right game plan if they get to the playoffs and they get into this situation again. But like you said, that giving up that late goal against Indy and then losing at Indy, um, you know, the late goal in the first game and then this one, it's going to hurt them in terms of playoff positioning potentially. But they have plenty of time to get that first seed, the top seed in their group. If they get the top seed in their group, then they potentially wouldn't see Indy until the second, until the I would say that's the Eastern Conference semifinal. Um, but hey, first things first. The 3 matches against Hartford are going to be really important. They have a very busy week. They've got to go to Loudoun United. That's not going to be easy. A road match. Loudoun, I think, gave New York Red Bulls. They beat them on Wednesday. They seem like they're in the mix in the middle there. I don't think they're going to be a pushover at home. And then obviously the Hounds will come back home and play St. Louis FC, which are right now sitting in that second spot and another potential playoff opponent. So these next 2 matches with heavy legs are going to be a real challenge to get through this next week. I would say 4 points I wouldn't say must, but 4 points would be essential to staying where they want to be and being within reach, striking distance of Hartford. We get to those 3 matches with Hartford. Obviously, they'll have room to make a serious move and take the top spot. But right now, just take a look at the game plan, get some rest, and I think they need those 3 points in Loudoun. They really do.
Absolutely. And to your point about the schedule, St. Louis, no easy matchup. St. Louis 3-3-1 right now, but in second place in the group with Indy and Louisville. So they've hung in there very well, trying to bounce back in what looks to be their final season in the USL Championship. A little sad there, but don't want to get too far off topic. And then, John, it's shorter rest going out to Hartford at the end of August, Friday the 28th at Hartford Athletic, the first matchup between the 2 teams at the top of Group F right now. So long trip, probably about a 10-hour bus ride or so, somewhere in that range, and you don't get the full 6 days rest in going out there. Then you come back and you play Loudoun United on Tuesday, September the 1st. So the next 4 matches are pretty tightly bound and not the easiest travel situation as well. So that's one thing to keep an eye on if you're the Hounds, is that every point's precious. We knew that coming into this season, but especially so now. And they're going to have to be much sharper than they were tonight, I would say, at least at the start of the match. And then at the end of the match, that's a situation where some frustration definitely, I think, kicked in and should kick in, because you have a man up. You should at least get 1 or 2 decent looks from open play, and there just wasn't anything there. So Indy's block of 8, if you will, make it a block of 10, really, after the 46th or 47th minute whenever Iose was sent off. It was stout, so we will give them credit. We're not going to play the homer card here and pin it all on Pittsburgh. Indy played well. Indy with now 6 wins and now first overall in the Eastern Conference. In fact, they have taken over the top spot from the Tampa Bay Rowdies. John, something interesting tonight. We saw Mark Lindstrom, the rookie defender, for the first time. He took the place of Skylar Thomas, who was injured in the second half. I think the Hounds were planning on Mark Lindstrom from University of North Carolina, Wilmington, to be a pretty good minutes eater on the back line. So a pretty good chance now with Thomas injured and with the quick turnaround that we see Lindstrom again. That's really the only item of intrigue, I would say, but also we're going to see some more squad rotation as well. So maybe Anthony Velarde gets a start. Maybe you see Lucas Fernandez as well. So that's something to keep in mind for Wednesday's match too.
Yeah, absolutely. And last 2 times I was in interviews with Bob Lilly, squad rotation was probably the first question I asked him both times. And, I think this is right now, it's critical. And, Lindstrom, to get some minutes tonight, I think helps him. And he, needs to get that match fitness and that game confidence in games. And, Bob was really high on Lindstrom going into the season before the things got shut down. But yeah, so this will be an opportunity for him to get some valuable minutes, and really that additional center back is going to be important because they were really thin there for a while, and there's still 4 players on the unavailable list. So yeah, Wednesday is going to be an interesting lineup. I also, I something tells me that he really had a nice rebound game the last game, but again tonight I thought he struggled a bit. It seems like if the ball doesn't get to with him and Dos Santos, that chemistry seems like a work. It seems like they're still working through that. At times they look like they're connecting well, and then there's times where I'm just not sure. So that it'll be interesting to see. I kind of like Mensah potentially coming off the bench. Maybe you'll see how he would work coming off the bench as a kind of an energy guy late in the match, and just kind of a dangerous guy to look out for. He was so effective in that role in Nashville last year. And you give a guy like Mark Forrest. Well, I don't think Forrest pairs up with Dos Santos very well, but you give a Fernandez, or even Danny, you kind of mix things up top. See, you could throw Velarde or Fernandez or somebody like that. And that's just maybe where they missed Dikwa. Maybe Dikwa was a guy that Albert Dikwa, who's really hasn't been able to get back into the country and play with this club, could have been that dynamic, either Mensah or Dikwa off the bench late in a match, like a little bit more dynamic player, that could stretch the defense late. Mensah's tired. He's played a lot of matches, 90 plus minutes. So I don't know. I just did. Maybe that might be something we might look at in the next week, one of the next 2 games.
Well, the starting 11 is going to look a little bit different, or a lot different. We know that on Wednesday. Maybe even Danny Vitiello as well. Good opportunity to get the backup keeper in to against, I don't want to call it an inferior side, but the Hounds should take care of business at Loudoun. As we saw last year, though, even the Hounds who ended up winning the Eastern Conference in the regular season, they had to rally back and score twice in the second half to upend Loudoun United. So on the road, you never take any of these points for granted. John, thank you so much for your expertise here on Pittsburgh Postgame. Jordan Smith had the live blog tonight, but you will have your postgame analysis, as always, later in the weekend, and then we'll rev it up for Loudoun on Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Matt, and have a good night.
John Krysinsky live from Seven Springs Resort. Lucky him. Very good stuff.
And I thought we'd have a nice background, but it got dark too.
So. That's all right. We can imagine it. We can picture the Laurel Highlands in all their grandeur behind you. I'm Matt Gajtka. All that's behind me is a backdrop for Pittsburgh Sports Live. Good reminder that you can subscribe by hitting that subscribe button on our homepage here on YouTube. And remember to also look for more coverage of the Riverhounds and all the rest of our Pittsburgh pro teams. Steelers camp's getting revved up. The Pirates continue on, apparently, after the weekend series was canceled with the Reds. And we'll continue to have Penguins hockey off-season coverage as well, in tandem with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Until next time, though, for John, I'm Matt Gajtka saying good night, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time for another edition of Pittsburgh Postgame.